Hey guys, today I wanted to make a video on installing a steering stabilizer in my truck. My truck's 2013 Ram 2500. This kit is exactly the same and will work on all 09 to 16 Rams. They also do make a very similar kit for the earlier generation Rams as well. So basically what happens is these steering boxes aren't super well supported from the factory. So after some time or some heavy use, they can get a little bit of slop in them and cause a little bit of a wandering or kind of a loose feeling steering. I don't have that issue right now, but I'm kind of doing this as a preventative thing because the kits aren't very expensive. So this is a kit I got here. This is kind of the mid-range of the price. They can go all the way up to almost $200 or all the way down to like $60 or $70. This is like I said, kind of a mid-range. It had really good reviews, got it on Amazon. So I'll throw the link in the description for this kit. Basically what it comes with is this big support bracket here that mounts to where the sway bar end links mount. So on the frame there's two bolts on each side to where it mounts up, and then it has this little bracket that comes off here that goes directly under the steering box. This bearing bolts to that, and then this has threads on the inside of here to thread right where the pitman arm is, and that's what this goes into the steering box. This goes into that bearing that's then supported through this whole bracket system, and that's what provides that extra strength to the bottom of the steering box. And that'll all make more sense if you're not familiar with how it looks underneath the truck whenever we actually go install it here in a minute. It did come with some good hardware too. This is grade 8 bolts and nylon lock nuts and everything, so good quality kit for the money. And again, I'll throw the link in the description below. It did not come with instructions, so I found some for a very similar kit online, and I'll throw the link to this as well. Tools you're going to need: torque wrench. This is a steering component, so make sure to use a torque wrench. Don't just go as tight as you can with your arms or whatever, because you don't want this stuff coming loose when you're going down the highway. I did have to go pick up an 1.5 inch socket for this big guy here. So that's the only one I didn't have. So I got an 1.5 inch socket, then I got a 15 for the sway bar mounts, a 17 and a 19 for the bolts that come in the kit, wrenches to go with it, Allen for the bearing to do the set screws on there. So these are all the tools you're going to need. So we're going to get set up under the truck and start undoing some bolts. Now we're up underneath the front of the truck. And the beauty of these trucks being so big is you don't have to jack them up at all to be able to work on them. So the sway bar links I was talking about are these right here. So you can see this is a big sway bar that goes right across the whole truck. So right there are two 15mm bolts on this side, two matching 15mm bolts on this side. Those are going to be the first two we're going to take off. I did throw a jack stand in the middle here to kind of support it, just so we don't get any kind of crazy angle on the end links and tear any boots or anything like that. So just a little jack stand in the middle, just so it'll kind of swing down and just sit on here and not get too much out of whack. So we'll pull those two 15mm bolts off and then bring it back. Okay, we got the sway bar mounts undone. You can see the sway bar is just hanging down now, being supported by that jack stand. Next is to take off the actual pitman arm nut, and I didn't have a socket that was big enough to go on that nut. I'm not sure what size it is, but it is bigger than 1.5 inches. So if you have one that's that size, great. If not, I was actually able to use an adjustable wrench, get it on there, and get it loosened up. You got plenty of room to move under here, so as long as you have a big enough adjustable wrench, you should be able to get that off. When you take that off, make sure to keep that lock nut, the lock washer, because we are going to reuse it. So this step, we're going to pull that nut off and then replace it with this part that's from the kit. This is the threaded end here, so it'll be right back on there with the lock washer underneath, and then we'll actually go ahead and torque this down. On the 09 and later trucks, this gets torqued down to 225 foot-pounds. So go ahead and knock that out right now. Alright, got the selector shaft in and tightened up, so you can see right there. 225 foot-pounds is a lot of torque. It took Took a good amount of muscling to get that on and tight, but you can see the lock washer is still on there, and now that is on there properly. So the next step is to actually put the whole bracket in place. This is how the bracket goes. Hopefully you can see that. So mounting point here, this goes down and underneath, and that selector shaft we just installed goes right through, and you try to center it up on these holes. Put all 4 bolts in. These are the 17 millimeters, but do not tighten them all the way down yet, because you still need a little bit of play to make sure the bearing and everything is in the right spot. So we're going to put this up into place, put the 4 bolts in, and then just finger tight them down so we can still, like I said, have a little bit of adjustment to make sure we get the bearing properly centered in this hole. Here's the bracket installed. So you can see the bracket goes up, and then underneath these mounts, these are the new bolts, and then of course it's the same on the other side, and then our shaft comes right through this large hole. And like I said, you want to keep this tight, because as you can see, I still have some movement in this bracket. These are actually slotted on each side, so I can kind of have some lateral movement to make sure the bearing goes on. So the bearing I have right here, I already greased it. It does have a grease fitting and everything. So what this is going to do is going to slide right over this shaft. Let's see here. Nice tight fit. And then you're going to have these mounting holes mount up with those holes. So this shaft's going to go just like that. And then you're going to take the 2 larger bolts that come in the kit. They're going to come from the top, drop down through the holes, through the mounting holes, and then you have a washer and those nylon nuts on the bottom. So once you get those on, then we're ready to actually start to tighten everything up. So we're going to tighten up the outside bolts here. We're going to tighten those up first. Those go to 45 foot-pounds, and then I'll bring you back as we kind of go. But I'm going to throw the bearing on now, and then the mounting bolts drop down, and then get the nuts on, and yeah, and then we're just about done. Alright, we have the bearing in place now, so you can kind of see how the bolts go, the nuts drop down. So literally all we have left to do is tighten up all the bolts. So these outside ones on the sway bar mounts go to 45 foot-pounds. The ones on the bearing, the instructions don't say, so I'll probably go to like 45 foot-pounds on those as well. And then you just have the little Allen set screws on the actual bearing itself. And that's it. So tighten everything up, double check, make sure everything's tight, make sure everything's done properly. Again, can't stress this enough, this is a steering component. Obviously one of the last things you want coming loose going down the road. They also recommend you come back and check it about 100 miles down the road just to make sure nothing came loose, nothing's binding up. You know, you are going to want to start to grease this with your regular kind of maintenance schedule. So yep, we're going to tighten everything up and then take it for a test drive and see if we can tell a difference. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. Just went and took it on a test drive, and everything seems to be great. I mean, like I was saying earlier in the video, I wasn't really having any issues before, so this is kind of more of a preventative thing than it was a repair. But if you do have a Ram 09 to 16, 25 or 3500, I would recommend doing this, especially if you're having, you know, vague steering or wandering or some excessive play in the steering wheel. It's a very easy thing to do. I knocked it out in probably 40 minutes. I could have done it in less time without filming. You could probably knock it out in 25 or 30 minutes. It's really not complicated at all. So yeah, if you're having that issue, or if you just have this model truck and want to do like I did and just kind of prevent having that problem, you know, potentially down the road, then definitely a mod worth doing. So like I said earlier, I'm going to put all the links to the kit itself, as well as the links to the directions I found in the description below. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. I have another video coming up in another couple of days about upgrading the stereo system in the truck. It does not have the Alpine, it's just the normal 6-speaker kind of bass setup. So I have a whole full set of kicker 6x9s for the front and rear doors, and 3.5 dash speakers. I'll do a little install video on how to put those in too in the next couple of days. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for the next one. Thanks, guys.